Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We're early in the December period here. We're approaching the weekend of December 7th, so those that are doing senior plans are probably fast and furious. I am your moderator today. Get going with our virtual water cooler. So I always like to start it off by reminding you of your support team. You've got Frank, the professor, industry expert, product designer, and innovator. We've got Susie, the administrator and office goddess, and then you have yours truly, Carrie, the marketing guy, who's walked in your shoes from producer of Life Health, PNC. I've got my real estate broker's license, corporate consultant, and speaker. So a jack of all trades and a master of none. I want to let everybody know that these sessions are being recorded, and we do post them to our website. And so you can go back and replay these if you can't miss it, or there's a topic in here that maybe you got called away and couldn't concentrate on. You can always catch that from our website. Speaking about our website, I want you to just keep a reminder. Our website is your resource. So at ZapQuotes.com, when you go to the Support and Training tab, click under Guides and Job Aids, you'll currently find a job aid about how to use the Shop and Compare tool, which I'm going to talk more about in a bit. I've added a new Covered California enrollment form because the passwords and setting up the user accounts is kind of difficult, to say the least, but I've created a form that I hope will help you guys with that. And then some resource information regarding the modified adjusted gross income. I've gotten a lot of phone calls about, does this income count? I'm getting a settlement. Does that income count? So I've got a good document for you. Actually two. One is on the MAGI calculation, and the other one is just a general tax guide rules that I found for you. So for today's agenda, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the product that we're calling Zap Exchange, and that's basically the integration of the individual quote with the exchange product. Then we're also going to talk about some Covered California updates. There's a sales training seminar that Covered California does every other Wednesday, and I listen in on those, and I try to glean, you know, like the top most important things that come out of those conversations. And so there's a few things I want to share with you guys about that. And then last but not least, at the end, we will take any questions that you have about what's going on at ZapQuotes or any problems you're having, that type of thing. So let's just break right into the Zap Exchange. When Frank and I were designing this, we basically were saying, you know, how can we add more value to this product so that you guys can add more value to your clients? And so when it comes to explaining the exchange plans, what we found was that you have to go with all of the Covered California ancillary marketing material, and then you have to kind of like glean through that and sometimes create your own thing. And so what we came up with was an integration between the Covered California Exchange and the ZapQuotes. So with that said, I just want to point out a couple of things here. The first one is you'll notice that our quote screen now encompasses a few more pieces of information. And most importantly, it has this button here, or a hyperlink, that lets you activate the Shop and Compare tool within ZapQuotes. And so what that does for you is it allows you to go directly into the exchange's website, enter their information, and it'll render a decision about what the monthly premium is and what their tax assistance portion is. And once you have that information, you can come back over to ZapQuotes and you can put that amount in the subsidy amount, the annual income. You can also now start to collect your contact information and any particular notes about your client. And then when you hit the submit key, you will see that some of the plans will come back. But before I do that, I want you guys to pay special attention to what's going on inside of Zap Exchange. Because you're live on the Covered California webpage, you are able to click on the Enroll button, which will open another link that lets you create the customer user account or the client's account. So you can create their account to start the enrollment process from within Zap Exchange. But what you cannot do is try to apply through ZapQuote, Zap Exchange. It has to do with some security that the Covered California Exchange has. So if you were to click on the Apply button, it would take you to the screen you're used to seeing. You'd put in your username and your password, and it wouldn't recognize you because of some kind of cookies or something that the California has going. So I just wanted to point that out we've had a few calls on that. And again, I'll stop at a point here where you guys can ask questions. But back to the Zap Exchange, there's a couple of things I want you to notice. The first one is that your quote is going to be subtracted by the amount of the subsidy that you put in. So all of your rates are going to be minus the subsidy amount. And the other thing is that when it comes to an exchange plan, the description is going to be in bold, blue, versus a black color. So that's how you're going to know the difference between an exchange plan or an off-exchange plan. It's going to be either blue for the exchange, or it'll be, the lettering will be in black if it's an off-exchange. So let's move to the next page. And so we started out with, I don't know, 18 or 20 different plans. We've clicked on the button to reduce it down to the number of plans that we're interested in. And now what we want to do is we want to do a side-by-side comparison. And this is what Frank and I are really excited about, because what we've done for you here is we've given you a report type that can be situation-based. So the first situation is you've got a customer who's currently uninsured. You would click the uninsured, and then the side-by-side document, which can be emailed or printed, would present with a few new features for you guys. So the first one is it says you may qualify for the advanced tax credit, and then it gives them some information about Covered California, the health insurance market, and most importantly, it specifically describes their situation. So this particular one, you are currently uninsured, generally without an exception. The amount of additional tax would be the larger of the flat rate penalty or percentage of the income. And I don't know about you guys, but I've talked to a lot of prospects that were looking into this, and they hadn't realized that the penalties were starting to get a little bit more significant than they were last year. So we wanted to arm you with better information and a little bit better call to action so that when you present this to your prospects, they realize that it's getting pretty significant if they don't take action on it. And then we also have, if they currently have a private plan, we've kind of geared it towards the tax penalty portion. And so we've got some verbiage around, you're currently covered, you most likely wouldn't incur any tax liabilities, so on and so forth. If anything changes, please contact me, that kind of thing. So we're pretty excited about that. So what I'm going to do now is, do you guys have any questions about what I've covered so far?
Well, I do.
Okay.
This is Susan. I must have been looking at something on my desk, but I didn't see how you opened this page where the select report types are on the quoting system.
Yeah. Okay. So, for example, when you are in your proposal, and you're going to select which ones you want to filter, so you would select, like 2 or 3 of these, and you would hit keep, correct?
Correct.
Then that would filter down. So then you would go down to this graphic, which is our side-by-side view.
Yes.
And you would click on the side-by-side. And then you'll get this pop-up, and you can choose either the default, which will then print without this header that we've now added, or in this particular case, I selected uninsured, and this is the uninsured side-by-side, at-a-glance summary.
Okay. Because I didn't know this was there, so I've always used the side-by-side outline and not this one, but I see how valuable this can be for new people.
Right, and I've been misspeaking. It's at a glance. It's not the side-by-side. It's at a glance. Okay, great. Any other questions?
Well, I see employer plan. What does that look like when you open it?
Basically, it's the middle box is the one that changes, right? Because the 2 boxes on the right and left are pretty static as far as informational purposes. So when they click on the one that says employer plan, it says, you are currently insured. Congratulations. As long as your employer continues to sponsor their plan and you are, qualified, you're likely not subject to any tax penalties. If, however, you become not eligible, please consider shopping for the exchange because you have an opportunity to buy coverage through them.
Yeah, and this brings up a point I don't know. Well, since you do know this industry pretty well, this has been kind of a sticking point with Covered California because the rules so far have been that if people have employer coverage that pays a certain amount of their income, not, percentage, that pays benefits that end up being a certain percentage of their income, then they don't qualify for tax credits through the exchange. But Covered California itself apparently allows people to go into the program anyway and gives them the tax credits. And I'm kind of stymied with that because I can't recommend they do that. They're going to come back to me when the tax man rolls around and says, you know what, you shouldn't have been getting that tax credit or taking it away from you and you have to pay us back. I don't want them coming to me and saying, hey, you told us it was okay, or Covered California said it was okay.
Right. Actually, you covered a little bit of ground on two kind of separate topics, right? So the first one is you don't want to be in the business of giving any tax advice. Mm-hmm. And so what we've done is we've given you the opportunity to check the default, in which case this header won't appear at all. And you don't even have to, if you're not comfortable putting yourself at risk with any kind of statement, you don't have to. The second thing is that we've been we've chosen the wording very carefully in here so that it is not tax advice. It's generally saying you most likely won't incur, and we're keeping it very nondescript, if you will, but we're trying to congratulate those that have coverage, and we're trying to encourage those that don't have any coverage that there's a potential tax penalty associated with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. But we're not getting into the weeds with that employer plan and the advanced tax.
Right. Yeah, okay, so now the part B of your question has to do with the minimum standard qualification that the employer plan has, and also is it below the 9.5% threshold of the client, mm-hmm. and all of the deep-weeded kind of stuff, which really wasn't intended for us to do, mm-hmm. In this document. And so I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question, except that it's really not an issue for companies that are 50 employees or less, and really 100 or less, because they waived them another year. They gave them another year to implement that. So in framing an answer for you, what I would say, if the person was asking me, the first thing I would say to them or ask them is, how many employees do you have at your company?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if it's 0 to 50, mm-hmm. there's no penalty, there's no issue associated with whatever the employer's paying or not paying.
Oh, well, that's good to know because we had been told in the past that if the employer offers any coverage, that sort of overrides their ability. In fact, it comes up more when we're talking in small group, when we're talking about employees who are only offered coverage, but it's optional for their dependents. The dependents themselves, if they're offered coverage through the employer, even though they're not paid for, they so far have not been able to go to Covered California and get the tax credits. On the shop, they've done that. On shop, they've done that, and we had expected the January small group plans to allow it, but it's coming very slowly, if at all.
The January small groups allow what?
Allow the dependents of someone who is only the employer only pays for the employee's coverage, but the family has access to dependent coverage if they want to pay for it. The carriers so far, other than SHOP, and I think maybe CalChoice is going to allow it, they are not allowing built into the plans, and the carrier hasn't taken out or made optional the dependent coverage.
Okay, I lost on that.
Right. So
my understanding is that if you have a group health plan that offers coverage to employees and dependents, then if you're and you have value and affordability in the plan, regardless of whether you're under 50 or over 50, mm-hmm. and your contribution as an employee is more than 9.5% of your income, then you can opt for the subsidy and go through the exchange and waive off the group health plan and have a legitimate waiver. But if you don't have to pay the contribution, then if you're paying less than 9.5%, your group contract has to be employee-only contract, and then it would allow for the dependents to go in and get the subsidy.
Right, but at this moment, I believe, the carriers haven't offered the ability to take the dependent coverage out of.
But we've always had that ability. We've always had the ability to request employee-only contract or not. I've always been able to do employee-only contract. They were rare.
Well, they can make a contribution. They can make a contribution on behalf of the employee, but then the dependents have been able to buy the coverage on their own and pay for it.
But not if the contract, not if the group contract says it's only offered to the employee.
But even
what employers are doing, they're changing their language in their contract to employee-only coverage. So that
that's up to the carriers to allow that language to be present. And have you had contracts like that?
I had one that was. I mean, I've had contracts both ways, but I haven't attempted to create one recently that was employee-only or downgrade one. But I've had employee-only contracts before. So unless they've changed the rule in the last year, I guess.
In California?
Yeah.
Okay, because most of them and the carriers themselves will tell you that they don't know when that change is going to happen. So that has always told me that it's a safe assumption that it's coming, but it hasn't been implemented yet. But I'll call and ask again. I've not seen those. Has anybody else besides you?
No, but let me make a note of that, because where the bottom line comes down is whether the person can qualify for the subsidy. So if it's greater than 9.5% and they can show that, then first of all, they can always enroll in the exchange. The question comes down to whether they'll be eligible for the subsidy or not.
Oh, sure.
And that's where there's some consternation around this particular thing in the mid-sized group arena. But for the purposes of our conversation today, can we just kind of table that for now and move?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. Okay, and then I'll discuss this with Frank, and we'll get some information back to you on it, just so we can compare.
Thank you.
All righty, so I had mentioned to you guys that we are now able to capture some more information about the people that we're doing the quotes for individually. And so you have the ability to recall your individual quote. You can recall from within your quoting screen, or you can go to the client login and put in your username and password. And if you haven't used this in a while and you don't remember, then just shoot an email over to ZapHelp, and we'll get that back to you. But if you go through this method, you'll hit recall individual quote, and then what you'll see is that we are now giving you the ability to keep track of let's just take this person here. So we've got Sam Paul, we've got his census information, zip code, phone number, their prospect, and we made some notes in here. Their income is over the covered California limit. They want HMO. They had Kaiser. They liked it. They're going to make a decision after Thanksgiving, and I need to call them after 8 p.m. So we wanted to give this customer contact information make it more robust, because a lot of our users were telling us that they're using Excel spreadsheets, they're using Outlook. They don't have one central place that they can go to quickly be able to retrieve this information. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that we had that.
It's very handy. You don't have to input it again every time you want to look at somebody's things. It's really great.
So you started to use it then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's the search feature too, Carrie, you might want to.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Oh, hi, Frank. So up in the right-hand corner, you have a search feature here so that you could type it if you can't remember the date or the time or zip or whatever it was. It's a wildcard search. You just start typing in their name, and bam, you can pull it back up. And these headers are also sortable. So under date created, if I click that, it would go oldest to newest or newest to oldest. So that's a quick way for you to get to it as well. And we already had kind of a robust questions. I think I jumped the gun a little bit on that. So I'd like to roll into the Covered California updates. And with that, I can't stress enough that you guys really need to go to the Covered California website under the agent resources and just kind of see what they're starting to post out there, because some of the stuff they're actually starting to get correct, and it's pretty timely and it's good information. So I attended the call last week, and I just wanted to point out just a couple of things here that I think are going to be really important for you. One of the new things that they added this year was around entering income. And there's now a date field of the first date paid and the last date paid. And what their intention was is if the employee has worked at the company for, 3 years or 5 years, they want you to put in there, roughly the date that they started and the year. So in this case, if they started 3 years ago, you would put, like say December 7th, 2011. If they're currently working with the company, you need to leave the field blank. And I don't know about you guys, but the first time I encountered this, I put in, they got a check December 1 of 2014, and they'll get their last check December 31st of 2014, and my person was denied any...
Eligible for medical, no income.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, what's up with that? Okay, so that's what the deal was. So it's really important that you understand that. So leave it blank. And the thing is during the year, if they switch jobs, then the intention is that you'll go in there and say the last check was June 1st, and then you'll add a new employer with the new date that they're being paid. So the other thing was that the password complexity rules are really insane, and they didn't do a good job of explaining what they are. The most important one that you guys need to understand is that it cannot have any word found in dictionary or names. So no more can you put in Frank 123 or anything along those lines. It has to be what I call gibberish. And then they have the conventions of, 8 characters and has an alpha and alpha and all that kind of jazz. And in the beginning of the call, I mentioned to you folks that I created a document that's out on our website to help with the enrollment creation of an account. And basically what I did is I just took the fields that are going to be necessary to create the account, and then under the passwords and such, I put a description of what the rules are so that you'll have it in one document. And the way that I've been using this is when I get a phone call from someone who says they're interested, I go into ZapQuotes, I create my estimate of what I think it's going to be for them. I go to my at a glance. I send them the at a glance as a separate PDF plus the link, and then I attach that document and I tell them, when you're ready to go forward with this, fill this form out and shoot it back to me and we'll create the account. And I do a share screen with them, and while I'm doing the share screen, I've got one of those forms with me, and so I'm writing down the passwords and the usernames and all of their account information, and I just keep that in my file if I ever need to log in and do anything for them. So it's just a nice little job aid to have. And I've actually gotten a lot of enrollments where I just got a call from somebody. I sent them this document. I told them to fill it out, go online, create the account, choose me as the agent, and when they've done that, to call me back. And lo and behold, they actually do it.
I don't understand why you do that. Why don't you just do the application for them on your own portal?
Well, it really depends on the particular individual. I've had situations where I've gone out to a company and I've given a presentation to 5 or 6 of the employees, and they weren't comfortable at that time working with me on the computer. It's just a matter of how it works for the different people. But no matter how I end up creating an account for someone, that's the document that I keep in my folder, so I know how to go in there. The other thing...
Oh, go ahead. Well, no,
The other thing is that if you go in as the agent and you create their account and then you select yourself as the agent and you complete the application process for them, when you get to the very end and it starts asking them for their signature and their PIN because they're saying that they agree to arbitration, you know, and all those other particular elements, if you're under your login, you have to put your name and your PIN testifying that you're telling on the behalf of the client.
No, actually, I changed the client's name and I put in my own PIN.
Yeah, well, but it's your PIN, so you're saying it for them. So
yeah, but
the ideal
system you verify the person's. Okay, so it's just a different way we're doing it. I mean,
exactly.
You would have to create this complex password for each client, and then do you have access to their records in complete where you can go in and make a change after that when they create that?
Yes. Yeah, it works both ways. I mean, the bottom line, however, is that each client ultimately is going to have their own username and password. Because when you go in as an agent and you do everything on behalf of the client, Covered California system is going to send them a made-up password that they're supposed to use the first time they log in to activate their account.
Even if they log in, though.
Agreed. Right, but you're not going to find this out until next year when you get ready to do renewal.
Well, you know what happened to me?
What am I?
What
probably do.
Here.
What happened to me?
You just said.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a point. I have a client who I was working with online, and she applied before open enrollment, so we had to go back in and have her re-sign her application and date it. I went in to look and see how far I could get in that, and it immediately told me, because we'd been doing this on the phone, and she's out of the area. They asked me as the agent, have I verified her as being herself?
Right.
I mean, you actually have to attest to that, and I had never met the woman.
What,
so they were telling me that I cannot complete their application as the agent without answering that question.
The test, it's not in the test. You're verifying their identity only, so you can upload their license at that point if they've texted it to you or emailed it to you, or you can ask them a set of complex questions that are based on their own credit worthiness using Experian, and it works just fine. It's like 3 questions, and like, do you have a bank account with Chase or Bank of America or Wells Fargo, and they have to answer it properly, and that's it. But anyway, what I understand, the other person said, I don't know who said it, but I'm going to have an issue at renewal. What issue am I going to have at renewal?
Have you had any renewals that you've done yet?
I have about 150 of them, but what issues would I have? Did you handle all
the renewals? So it wasn't consistent for me. So I had some of my renewals, they went completely through without any issue whatsoever. And then others, I got caught up in this, you got to validate who you are. I had others that they couldn't find who they were, and had to create a new account for them,
that's because they're not on your portal. So you're creating an account for each person, and it's their account. I have another friend of mine who's doing it that way. It's just harder. You have no access to their record. People forget their passwords all the time.
Yeah.
Well, you'd have a better service for the person if they can come back to you and say, I want to renew, and that's what my clients have basically come back.
Well, I've been calling my clients and saying, I want to help you renew.
Exactly.
No. But I have one gal who said, I don't remember my login, and I just at that time didn't know. Covered California wasn't, very smooth. So I wrote all of their passwords and logins down. So I happened to have it, but it wasn't because I called Covered California to get it.
Right.
Anyway.
Okay, well, this is just really a lot of fun we're having, aren't we?
Yeah, gee whiz.
All right. Okay, so now we're almost at a wrap here. So the other thing I wanted to share with you guys about the Covered California, and this was basically, you've gone in, like for example, I gave the example where I went in and I put the date of their first pay and the date of their last pay, and I got it all messed up. And so the only way to get out of that jam or to go in and be able to edit that information was essentially to finish the application and then come back and wait for the portal to tell me that I can now report a change. And so then when you go in and report a change, you click on the report a change, you can go into the individual element that you want to correct. In this case, for me, it was their income. And then I had to finish through the process again to let it recalculate to then let me choose the plans. And so sounds like you guys on the phone already know this, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the way to make your corrections is you actually have to complete the initial process that you may have done wrong and then click report a change to come back and change some of those fields, because it won't let you go back.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure everybody understood that.
Yeah, I have a question on that. When you go back in to report a change, then you have this screen that comes up where it shows what was the life event or what was the event, and instead of just one event, it's got like 3 or 4 different events, and you have to go ahead and fill out every single one of them. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or.
Yeah, I
No,
think there wasn't there an other? I think there was an other as an event. Other.
Yes, the other.
pick other as often as you can.
Pick other as often as you can. Good point. That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
And then, select other, and I think I had to put a description in where, and I said, correct last paycheck or something. And then it let me go through and do that.
Oh, okay.
Covered California itself will tell you to put other.
So moving around, we're just about to wrap. Last thing I wanted to mention to you guys is that we still have a free ebook if you want to do some reading once this crazy enrollment period is over. It's put out by one of our affiliate partners, Rocket Referrals, and it's the Agent's Guide to Referrals. And we highly recommend that you go and download the free ebook and listen to what they have to say. With that, I'm going to turn the corner and say that this is it for our December ZapQuotes early December call. If you have any questions or need information, feel free to reach out to us, and be sure and visit our ZapQuotes website, the training guide, so that you can find some of those documents I've been referring to. And also make sure that you check the calendar, because what I'll do is I'll be posting this webinar up to that calendar so that you can come back and replay it if there was some information that you wanted to revisit. And so with that, I will open it up for last round of questions, and also any comments, Frank, if you wanted to give any for us.
Oh, do you guys do this every Friday? Is that the?
Well, we're doing it every other. We do it twice a month. It's biweekly.
Okay.
Because we know it's really busy in this time, and we don't want to, we want to value your time because you want to be out selling. If we get more followings, we'll do it more often. But right now, it's biweekly.
Okay. Yeah.
Or bi-monthly, I guess.
Yeah, I've been so bogged down with the Medicare that I've got a backlog of covered California people. I'm just putting them off until next week. So.
One thing, by the way, I just want to share with the rest of the group, you need to check, you're going to get some off-exchange people, hopefully, right? You better check with each of the carriers to find out what their enrollment cutoff dates are. For example, HealthNet is December 7th, so you better do a round robin on your carriers.
I can't believe theirs is December 7th when they just got regulatory approval on their plans. That's insane.
Yeah. One knows, but just as heads up to you guys, double check with your carriers, find out what your drop dead dates are for off exchange enrollments. It's shorter than the on exchange.
Yeah.
Almost like they did it on purpose. I don't know.
Well, off
exchange is different than on the exchange?
That's correct. When I refer to on exchange, I'm talking about covered California, and they're letting us go up till December the 15th. And what I'm saying is an off exchange or a private plan, you need to check with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Kaiser, all the individual private plans to find out what their cutoff dates are, because they're not matching the dates that California is. Frank, you're up.
So we've got Blue Cross Blue Shield, HealthNet, and Kaiser effective January 1. Over the weekend, I'll have United Healthcare in. Today I got Aetna. Aetna takes a while because 85 pages times 19 areas. it's the first one of all. Sometime next week we'll have that.
Thanks.
So we'll have the small group rate by Monday. Everything but Aetna. By the end of next week we should have Aetna in also.
That's why we love you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
Frank, what about Western Health?
Western Health Advantage will be done over the weekend too. And we're trying to get a hold of, we've been chasing Sharp down. If you have a broker's rep at Sharp, we sure would like to get a hold of their rate. So if you happen to talk to that rep, just mention that ZapQuotes would like to, if you could get some contact information that will allow us to get their rates, that would be very helpful.
Okay, is that it, Frank? So appreciate everybody's time, and we ran a little bit late today, but lots of good questions, and we'll be following up on the one that we had earlier regarding if the dependent is being offered and the rate's greater than 9.5%. We got some. We'll get some information out to you guys on that.
Oh, cool.
Thanks. All right. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
You too.